I had a loyal listener to the podcast send in an article that they wanted me to take a look at titled How Scrum Masters and Managers Go Astray by Committing to Plans. And I thought that that was interesting because for me, I tend to like to commit to a well-formed plan, even if it means with the understanding that some things are going to change, right? So they start out, imagine your success. Imagine if your success gets measured on your ability to predict the unpredictable. It sounds pretty ridiculous, right? Yet this is how many default to measuring Scrum Masters and their team's performance. It's the rampant default behavior in organizations today. We ask our teams to commit to the uncontrollable. Estimates of work, effort captured as relative story points, completion of the plan and scope from sprint planning, completion of a sprint goal by the end of the sprint, and a team of outcomes from all up. Okay, let's stop. Here's what I know. All these things that you said are completely uncontrollable are not completely uncontrollable. I think that when you start to really gain a good understanding of how story points are leveraged, you can get story point estimation well above 85% accurate every single time. I think that the problem comes when you try to be too precise, when you try to really zone in. That's when you're going to start to see problems, right? So there's nothing wrong. There's no harm in putting together a scope of expectation of what you hope to be completed at sprint. There's nothing wrong with having a second sprint to finish up and wrap up some of the things that you're working on in the first sprint. But the point I'm trying to make is you should never come into this with the attitude that, oh, since we can't be perfect, we're not going to try. And I think that's what I feel here. I feel like it's almost like a cop-out post so far. And it shows a definite misunderstanding of what story points are, trying to tie them back to time. And it shows a definite misunderstanding of how to use a sprint goal to achieve what you're trying to build. And I think that if you get those two problems solved, that this article might completely go away. But let's see what they say the problem is. So according to them, they say the problem is the number of variables outside of the team's control in product work is massive. It's like asking teams to commit to predict where a paper airplane will land in a hurricane. I think that's an awful example, a terrible exaggeration, right? But he uses excuses like we didn't know that other teams had to do part of the work, or we forgot about the brittleness of the code. We have to change how it's not built solid. The architecture's not solid. The users actually need different features than what we originally had planned, or the users aren't using the perfect solution that we provided them in a way that we instructed with specific ironclad instructions. I don't know if you're catching on to what I'm saying, but it sounds like in every one of these cases, it wasn't the implementation was the problem. It was the people doing Agile not understanding how to properly do Agile. That was the issue. I think that when you start getting to a point where, this person has crossed the bridge, is what I like to call it, where they start talking about compelling upfront estimates, and compelling that the team has some plan as an amateur move. I disagree. I would argue it's a sign of maturity if the team can do this. But you have to come in with realistic expectations. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take 3 to 6 sprints to get things regulated. But once the team gets to a place where they're in that happy space, they can do some pretty incredible things. I think the problem is when you start mounting complexity and uncertainty, and you start asking questions like, will the technology even work? How long will it take to build this? How much time will it take? How much will it cost? I hope you see what I'm saying here. This person is really focused on the time aspect of this, and they haven't even done any initiate and discover. So what this is a symptom of to me is that this person's jumping straight to agile delivery models. They're focused on output, and they're driving everything based on, date driven or expectation driven, and they're not basing it on what makes the most sense from an architectural perspective and just swarming to build that work to get a really high quality product or service in there. Now, the truth is things can change, and that's okay. And how do you measure the team's success? By how happy the customer is. I don't care about all this other stuff, right? They use some examples. Let's mark this done even though it has defects, or let's count up our points for the task we did complete. And once again, these are all just behavioral issues. So what it sounds like to me is that whatever organization this is had some severe behavioral issues. And they wanted to, back out of their agreement, so to speak. So they leveraged problems to be able to back out of their initial agreement to deliver whatever they're trying to deliver. And I get it, but I'm not saying it's the right thing either, because commitment is the opposite of avoidance, right? So when you commit to something, that means you're going to get it done. And sometimes there's a rare case where you have to present and say, hey, I started on this, but now that I'm into it knee deep, I don't think it's a good idea, right? We need to address that form of technical debt. We need to not let ourselves get carried away building something that's not going to provide any value in the long haul. You want to make sure that anything that you're doing is going to provide consistent value, and that you're focused on the outcome and not the output, and that you're going to get to the point where you can understand that continual learning needs to take place, and you're going to embrace continual learning and opportunity for growth over having a dead set plan and following it to the letter of the law. And I think once you get to that point and you're back on that side of the bridge, then everything else becomes easier. It's just a matter of piecing the pieces together and getting to where you need to go. So that's going to do it for this episode. If you have a topic you want to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.